All right, I'm going to spend a few minutes actually just repeating the words of Jesus Christ where he talks about himself. He makes statements about himself, very vivid, very explicit statements about himself that leaves no room for sentimentalizing the words that Jesus said about himself. So I can do no better. Nobody needs or wants my opinions, nor does anybody's opinions matter. If Jesus Christ is divine, the Son of God, as he spoke of himself, and that he and the Father, he and God are one. And he says to one of his disciples, I think it was Philip, towards the end of his ministry, I believe it's in the Gospel of John, where Philip was questioning and doubting still. And Jesus said, Philip, have you been with me so long and you don't know who I am? Believe in me, or else believe in me for the work's sakes. What Jesus was saying, put it in our terms, paraphrase, he said, if you've seen me, you've seen the Father. Philip was asking him, show us the Father. And Jesus said, I've been with you for 3 years and you don't know who I am? I am in the Father, and the Father is in me. Like I said, that's what we would say, if you've seen me, you've seen the Father. If you've seen me, you've seen God. Jesus was equating himself with God. He was saying that he was from heaven. Now, people don't get all tweaked out about the word heaven. Nowadays, the modern idea, the modern term would be, heaven is simply another dimension. That's, the scientists, physicists, and all these people high up muckety-mucks are postulating, actually believing that there's more than one dimension, multiple dimensions, multi-universe, and all this kind of stuff. So just think of heaven as a dimension, because we have such mixed feelings about some words. When we think of heaven, people think, floating around on a cloud and all that kind of stuff. No, just think of it as a parallel universe, a parallel dimension to ours. Whatever it is, Jesus said, that's where I came from. And I took upon myself, supernaturally, by the Spirit of God. The Spirit of God conceived me in the womb of Mary. There was no human intercourse. Look at life itself is a miracle. Life itself is a supernatural miracle. So, you get look at any seed, an apple seed, a pine nut, a little tiny seed, a little tiny acorn grows into this massive oak tree. How is that possible? How is such a thing possible? When you get a little tiny pine nut that grows into a giant sequoia that's like 300 feet tall, and 15 feet in diameter, weighs hundreds of tons, all from a little seed that's about so big, maybe even smaller. Look at in the animal kingdom, especially with us, or you look at a whale, look at an elephant. The size of the egg and the fertilization, the sperm and all of that, at least for a human being, it's microscopic, almost. The human egg is barely visible. I think I've read someplace where it's like the size of a period at the end of a written sentence. Very small. And when it is penetrated by a sperm cell, all of a sudden stuff starts happening. The cell starts multiplying. What causes that? Now the atheists, some of these atheists are very smart. Some of them are, like microbiologists, and they've got advanced degrees, PhDs. They could run circles around me talking about stuff, the technical aspects of biology. I have no idea. I'm as dumb as I couldn't hold a candle to them. And yet they're so smart, but they're such fools. They're very smart, but they're fools because they believe all of this came from nothing. They believe that all of this life happens without some sort of plan, without some sort of design. Well, I ask them, what is the force behind the growth of an acorn? What is the force? Or they say it's just purely physical, it's sunshine and water and soil, and the nutrients in the soil causes it to grow. Really, I can't believe how intelligent, mightily intelligent people, when it comes to technical, scientific knowledge can be so void of faith. And I don't mean faith in like we're as dumb as rocks, so we just believe superstition. Faith is much different than that. Faith is built on evidence. And like the Apostle Paul said in the first chapter of Romans, the knowledge of God is all around us. It's just in nature. Just look at nature. Look at a flower, look at a plant, look at a bug, look at an ant. Some divine power way beyond us. Some divine knowledge and intelligence and will is way beyond us. Look at what we come from. We come from these tiny little microscopic specks of goo, and we come and we multiply. Just get on YouTube and look at videos of the stages of progress of childbirth, from conception all the way to childbirth. Look at these videos, and some of them are animations, but they're accurately portrayed, of conception, the moment of conception, the moment that the sperm penetrates the egg, and then the egg forms some sort of a chemical deal, the shield that prevents other sperm cells from getting in. What brain is orchestrating this? There is no brain. This multiplying bunch of cells doesn't have a brain yet. So there has to be some other intelligence guiding it, because the brain, the human brain, hasn't even been made yet. We're talking 1, 2, 3, 4 days old, a week old. I don't know when the brain starts developing, when the actual brain starts developing. But the heart is developed and starts pumping where there is no brain. All of these cells are being organized and directed into feet, toes, internal organs, eyes, ears, nose. Who's telling them? What's telling them where to go? Who's telling this blob of goo that pro-choice people say is just nothing but goo? Nothing. It's not a human being. What's directing this mass of goo? What's directing it? It's not directing itself. There has to be something supernatural behind all of this. But like in the book of Romans, you say this is an antique book, and it's, it doesn't have the technology and the advanced knowledge that we have nowadays. We're so sophisticated. But in the first chapter of Romans, the Apostle Paul states the matter plainly. He says, the evidence of God is all around us, but we are rebellious. There is a rebellion in every human being, and we don't want God. I think these atheists have plenty of knowledge of God. They just don't want to admit it. They don't want the ramifications of there being a God. And so in the first chapter of Romans, he says that these people's foolish hearts were darkened. God gave them over to a depraved mind, gave them over to darkness. And so in darkness, we do all kinds of crazy stuff, absurd stuff. And then, he gets into this whole thing of the men exchange the natural use of the woman for men. So men doing sexual stuff with each other, women doing sexual stuff with each other. That we're so smart. We're so smart. We're so sophisticated. What other animal does this? What other animal? But human beings, we've lost our minds. We've lost our conscience. We've lost our compass. We've lost God. The animals do by instinct what they're supposed to do. But mankind, because of the fall, because of sin, we've lost our instinct for God. We've lost our faith. And faith is to mankind what instinct is to animals. Animals do by instinct what they're supposed to do. There's some butterflies up in the New England states that, from what I've read, they fly all the way down to Mexico or South America to breed, and they lay their eggs, and then the adults die. And when the larvae, caterpillars or whatever they are, they get turned into butterflies down in South America or Mexico. When they develop and are able to fly, they all en masse fly back to the New England states. I mean, that could be a journey of a couple thousand miles. I don't know. How do they do that? They've never been there. Their parents didn't teach them. How do those butterflies fly all the way back to the New England states? We call it instinct. How does a salmon that's hatched in a shallow brook 1,000 miles, 1,500 miles away from the ocean, when it's hatched, after a while, after it's matured a little bit, it swims out down the rivers all the way to the ocean. It stays in the ocean, a salmon. I think they say it stays in the ocean about 3 years. And then it swims all the way back up the rivers, the very rivers that it swam down. Goes all the way back to not only the rivers, but the exact tributary, the exact brook, the exact little trickle of water where it was hatched. And there it breeds and lays eggs, and then it dies. How does it do that? How does it find its way back? We call it instinct. I also read about homing pigeons. You know, you can take a homing pigeon 600 miles away from its home and release it, and in a day or two, it'll be right back to its home. How does it do that? How does it know its way back? I think the record was a homing pigeon that was raised in Southeast Asia, Vietnam, or one of these countries down there, was taken all the way to France, you know, in a cage, all the way to France, and let go. About 30 days later, it showed up at its home, I don't know, some 7,000 miles away. How does it do that? It does what it's created to do. It does it by instinct. But we people, so superior to animals, we don't have any instinct. We don't know what we're doing. If the animal world could speak and could think, they would look at us and say, you people are crazy. You've lost your minds. And indeed, that's really what it is. We've lost our minds. We've lost our instinct for God. And God came into this world as a human being, as a fellow human being, to give us back that instinct for God and to lead us back to the Father's home. It's like homing pigeons. God sent his Son into this world to, among other things, show us the way back. Show us the way back to him who spawned us. Show us the way back to the spawning ground from which we came and to which we ought to be destined. Jesus said of himself, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Follow me. Jesus Christ is the way. And the only way to get to that heavenly realm, that blessed heavenly realm, is to follow Jesus. That's it for now.